The female teacher walked into the classroom with a blank expression on her face, but she was hiding a fruit knife inside her book. Suddenly, she grabbed the fruit knife and stabbed it viciously into her own stomach. Amid the students' screams, Miss Liang stabbed herself a total of 81 times. It wasn't until the dismissal bell rang that she threw away the knife in her hand. Then, as if carrying out some kind of command, walked toward the window. Under the terrified gaze of the students, Miss Liang stood on the windowsill, stared straight ahead, and jumped down. Soon, the police arrived at the scene after receiving the report, but when the medical examiner saw the body, he quickly noticed something unusual. This was completely different from a typical fall from a building. Usually, victims instinctively land on their limbs, but Ms. Liang died from her forehead hitting the ground first. The captain of the criminal investigation team immediately went to the classroom to review the surveillance footage. However, he found that the teacher never lowered her head the entire time, and even after stabbing herself so many times, there was not a trace of pain on her face. After watching the footage, a criminal psychology expert speculated that Ms. Liang was very likely hypnotized. To uncover the truth, the police conducted interviews and discovered that the teacher had only average relationships with her students and colleagues, and didn't even have close friends. The only person who had long-term close contact with her was her husband. However, when the man learned that his wife had jumped to her death, he immediately appeared completely devastated. But that night, after returning home, he eagerly performed a ritual for his wife, constantly muttering apologies. At that moment, he sensed that someone seemed to be beside him. When he turned his head, he saw his deceased wife, but when he turned again, there was nothing there. By this point, the man was already terrified out of his mind. He hurriedly packed up his wife's belongings into a bag and threw everything into the trash, completely erasing all traces of her presence in the house. This caused the case to reach a deadlock. Fortunately, at that moment, one of the teacher's students told the police that a few days earlier, while visiting her home for tutoring, he had witnessed the couple arguing. Following this lead, the police investigated further and discovered that the teacher's husband had been having an affair for 3 years, and that the other woman was already pregnant. Just days later, the teacher jumped to her death. The police listed the husband as the primary suspect, but he refused to confess. To further crack the case, a female officer decided to work with a professional hypnotist to simulate the hypnotic scenario from that day, hoping to obtain useful clues. But what no one expected was that the strongest psychological trigger before Ms. Liang's death was a student who gave her an eerie smile.